Hello and welcome to 100% Real with Ruby. Now I have Luke Leaman on for part 3, where we are talking about supplements, micronutrients, and how just focusing on calories is doing yourself a massive disservice, because we don't just want weight loss, we want total body recomposition. And what you eat matters a hell of a lot more than what social media lets you believe. They oversimplified it, but it's actually not all that hard. And we also talk about the supplements you actually need to get a little step ahead of the curve. I hope you enjoy. And this one will be a little shorter because I will be splitting it up into two, with the second section of this talking about the realities of building muscle, the realities of social media, smoke and mirrors, and what it really takes. We break it down, and yeah, they're both two shorter episodes to make it easier for you to listen to take notes away from. And the other one I will be releasing tomorrow.
Maybe not. It just depends on how it works with you. But I can tell you, if you're gonna binge and cheat on anything, protein's the thing you want to binge and cheat on, because again, it's satiating. It's very difficult to do that. No one's ever gotten fat overeating steak and broccoli. So if you're binging on that, you're probably going to be doing better off than if you pull out the peanut butter and jelly and start making peanut butter jelly sandwiches and chocolate milk, because that's far easier to consume more of than the former.
Yeah, it's all the other stuff you have on top of all of that that actually causes it. And with that, it's kind of the whole micro deficiencies can store fat loss and prevent muscle building. And a lot of people are even nutrient deficient, even when they're overeating. It's just worse if you're undereating.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and the thing is, like, when you look at anything, your body likes to live in this state of like this range of homeostasis. Unfortunately, is if you've tipped the balance too far one direction, and you've gotten a little bit overly fat, and you don't like the way you look, and you want to get that down, you want to change your body. Your homeostatic level now is the body you're living in. If I want to change that, I have to tip the scale back the other way. So when you look at like a normal amount of energy intake, if you're eating a lot of whole foods, could you get enough of the nutrients? Maybe not. It depends on how good your food source is. Food is drastically under nutrition nowadays. And so if I wanted to tip it one way, so like if I want to undereat, I'm going to get even less food that has subpar nutrition when you compare it to 100 years ago. So it might be a good idea to get yourself a high-powered multivitamin, multimineral, because all of these processes, all these enzymes that you're driving, all these pathways are dependent on a lot of cofactors, and those cofactors are the vitamins and minerals. So if you're eating less food, you already have a drop in how much nutrition you're eating. But if you're training, you still have an increased need for these cofactors. You still have this increased need for these minerals and these vitamins. So whenever you train and you break things down, you're driving those enzymatic processes. So you're chewing up vitamins. So if you're undereating, probably a really good idea to take a multivitamin, multimineral, and spend the money on a good one. Don't go to Costco or Walmart and buy it. Like get a good one, like Thorne Research, Metagenics, Pure Encapsulations, Nutridyne, something like that. That's
Life Extension is what I got my girls on.
Life Extension is a good one too. And the thing is, like, not all vitamins are the same. So if you go to, say, Walmart and buy a Centrum for $6, a lot of those, half the time the tablet doesn't even absorb. So you'll poo and you'll see a tablet in your poo. Like, what's the point? You're wasting $6. And a lot of the vitamins and minerals they put in there are the lowest quality ones you could do, and half of them don't absorb anyways.
a very funny thing I'm starting to see now is people buying greens powder and protein powder that has multivitamins included in it.
Yeah, that's a bad idea. That's a bad idea because look, it's like anything else. You look at like fortified cereals. Like I love cereal. I love my Cinnamon Toast Crunch. And you look at the box and it says, okay, it's 100% vitamin D, blah, 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 blah. Well, if I'm making not here, it's expensive. It's like $12 a box in Australia, but at home, it's like $2.50, $3 a box. If I'm going to make a box of cereal that's fortified and it's only going to cost $3 to buy the cereal and I want to make profit, am I going to pick the best, highest quality vitamins to fortify that with? Or am I going to use what's the lowest tier vitamin I need to put in here just so I can put it on the label? So when you look at cheap supplements, especially like in bodybuilding type stuff, bodybuilders are really good with things like citrulline and beta-alanine and creatine. But once you get into like vitamin A and D and E and K and C and B1, B2, B3, and we could keep going on and on, those are probably better off with a really high quality one that's actually going to absorb. And yeah, you're going to spend some money on it, but if you think about, people here have no problem spending $6-7 on a coffee every day. A good high powered multivitamin is only going to cost you like $2 or $3 a day.
Two things I want to say. Number one is it's funny because just recently I was seeing people say why Weet-Bix is so good for you because it has iron included, but you just stated case in fact that it's very low quality. Like, yeah, cool, it has iron, but it's not going to do what you think it's going to do in your body.
Well, okay, think about what iron is recommended by Australian doctors. If you go to the doctor and you have iron deficiency anemia, doctor's going to put you on Ferrograd C. Ferrograd C is iron sulfate. Iron sulfate is not absorbable. That's why when you take it, it almost never increases your iron and always makes you constipated. Iron sulfate can work really well if you get it through an IV, but it's never going to work well as an oral supplement. So you want to look at something like an iron bisglycinate, something that's chelated, because that actually gets absorbed and will crank your iron back up. So if a doctor is prescribing the wrong iron, what do you think they're putting in Weet-Bix? And although I do love Weet-Bix, man, I like, if I'm feeling bingy, the like coconut vanilla or coconut something, the little squares, I'll just pull it out and start eating them like a bar. I don't even put milk on them or anything. I just eat them. So.
It reminds me of when I came to Brisbane with that big bowl. But but yeah, that's another reason why it's so important to have a coach, because a lot of doctors say the stupidest shit about a lot of things because they haven't kept up with the research.
Yeah, but then, the doctors can say the same thing about us too, because they're trained for this thing that we're not trained for, and we're trained for stuff that they're not trained for. Like doctors aren't trained in nutrition, so if they don't do continuing education, they have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. They're not trained in training. But I tell you what, I can't read a fucking MRI on somebody's knee, neither can you. So it's like we've got to know what they're good at versus what we're good at, right? So
on the micronutrients, because I remember you telling us a story at one of the seminars where you had a client that wasn't losing weight and you put her on a multivitamin, and because now she had all the cofactors she needed for her metabolism and fat and carb oxidation, blah, 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 she finally started dropping weight on that. And I think this highlights the importance of not just a multivitamin, but why food quality is so freaking important.
Massively important. But like with her, and this has happened with a number of our clients, right? So we might start them off on no multivitamin. We might just throw in maybe a little bit of fish oil, maybe a little bit of creatine, a couple of small things, because people need to understand, like, you can lose weight, you can have nutrient deficiencies, and you can lose weight, but it might be slower than you want it to be. You might not have as much energy as you want. So what we'll usually do is we'll get them losing a little bit of weight at first. Then we'll throw in something like a Thorne Advanced Nutrients or something like that. And what we noticed was the minute we put the vitamin in, they started losing 2 to 3 times the amount of weight, and they felt better. And then when I was looking at people's check-ins, you see this going on for like 6-7 weeks, and all of a sudden they hit a stall. And I'm like, okay, hit the stall. I go to Chronometer. I don't see them putting in the multivitamin anymore. So then I email them. I'm like, hey, how are you going with those multivitamins? They're like, oh, I ran out 2 weeks ago. Huh? Your weight's been stalling. Yeah. Yeah. When did it start stalling? Oh, around 2 weeks ago. And then like, oh, I'm like, all right, yeah, that actually works for you. Then you might want to consider taking it. So, but you want to look at taking something that's like comprehensive and something that's designed to be taken daily for long periods of time, because it's again, it's like if I'm gonna redo my nutrition, if I'm gonna redo how I eat, if I eat a certain way and that's what makes me lose weight and that's what transforms my body the way I want it to, great. That's the same thing that's going to help you maintain that. If you take a multivitamin and you feel better, and you have more energy and you're sleeping better and you can train harder and you're getting better results, okay, that's part of that nutrition, just like your protein, carbs, and fats. Stay on that. But where you can get into some trouble is when you're using things that can become toxic at very low levels once they're repleted. That's why like iron. If someone's gone to a doctor and they have done an iron study and they've been shown that they've got iron deficiency anemia, once they've taken enough iron for that to get high, they need to monitor that, because once it gets out of range, that's one of those nutrients, micronutrients, you don't want to take too much iron. It's things like vitamin A. If you're taking, like maybe you've done a test for vitamin A deficiency and you start taking a lot of vitamin A, that can get really toxic really quickly. So there are things, especially the micronutrients, that you may need them for a small period of time. But you might not need them forever. You might have to go through cycles of, maybe like vitamin D, right? Vitamin D in Australia, they'll hardly ever run vitamin D tests because they already know everybody's deficient. Why? Because everyone here is scared of the sun. So when they go out, they lather themselves up and they cover up, or they just don't go out in the sun. But we know we need vitamin D. How much vitamin D do you need? Well, it depends on how depleted you are. It depends on what level you want to get to. But here, in Queensland, we're in the right position on the earth to basically get vitamin D year round. But if you were living, say, in Sydney or Melbourne or Adelaide or whatever, at certain times of the year in the winter, you can go out, sit in the sun all you want. You're not going to make any vitamin D because it's at the wrong angle to the sun. So you might have some supplements that you use seasonally. So you might use seasonally, vitamin D during the winter, and then just get a little bit of sunlight in the summer and just keep a tab on that so you can keep your vitamin D regulated. So vitamins can be very helpful, and it drives me nuts when people go, oh, vitamins don't work, supplements don't work. People who say that, I can tell you have no idea what the fuck they're talking about. But people also need to be careful, because vitamins aren't benign. Like, just because they're sold at a pharmacy over the counter doesn't mean that they don't have consequences if you don't know what you're doing. So that's why, like, base supplementation for me, a multivitamin, multi-mineral, high quality one is designed to be taken day in and day out for long periods of time. Creatine, if people aren't taking creatine, something's wrong with them. There's so many benefits to creatine. Everybody should be taking creatine. And then, fish oil, a little bit of fish oil, maybe like 4, 5, 6 grams a day if you don't eat a lot of fish like I don't. You look at possibly a little extra.
Magnesium.
Yep, I said magnesium. I would say most people probably bare minimum 400 or 500 milligrams a day. Let's say if you're training really hard, probably more like 750 to 1,000 milligrams a day. It's probably a good point. If you're
that is a lot of magnesium, guys, because stress depletes it.
100%, like over 500 processes in the body. So when you're dieting, stress goes up, because dieting and training is a catabolic process. So when you're training, catabolic process means you're taking big things and breaking them down into smaller things. So you're taking fuel stores and you're utilizing stress hormones to break those things down and to move them around your body. So every time you break stuff down and you're making more energy, that's highly magnesium dependent. So the harder you train, the more hours you train, the more magnesium you're gonna need, because you can't recycle energy without magnesium, and you can't make that energy of bioavailable without magnesium, and your muscles can't relax without magnesium. Magnesium is a calcium channel blocker. So when you go and you lift weights and then you stop, magnesium is what causes the muscles to start to relax. So there's a lot of things that people need that they're not getting because we don't eat enough magnesium containing foods anymore.
This is why a healthy body is a responsive body. And if you aren't eating a high quality diet or actually checking to see if you have any deficiencies, you are stalling your fat loss, and you are you're hindering muscle building as well. They are all processes in the body that have to do with metabolism. There are other common deficiencies that you see as well, but something to keep in mind is if you take the oral contraceptive pill, there are a lot more that come into play because that depletes a lot of vitamins and minerals.
I'd say, the big things, a lot of B vitamins. So like B1, B2, B3, B5, B6, B9, B12, a lot of those are depleted when you're taking birth control. I don't know off the top of my head an extensive list because birth control is not something I usually talk to my clients. I used to, but nowadays we may have a small, quick discussion. But I mean, you're training like 20 girls. I can't keep tabs on who has a period, who doesn't, who's taking birth control, who doesn't. And I think I'm lucky too that because I train almost exclusively coaches, none of them take birth control. I very few, like if you look into the personal training health crowd, a vast majority of the women in my section of the industry, the section that you're familiar with, most of them don't take birth control. They just practice safe sex in other ways because they understand that there's some consequences. Like what's the benefit? You don't have a kid, especially if you don't want one, or if you're not ready for one. What's the consequence though? Well, I'm trading off a little bit of poor health outcome for that. Now, is it really bad? Hell, who knows? The literature's conflicting on it, and there's so many different things people could be taking. But I 100% would say if you are on a birth control pill, would definitely look at minimum a good quality B complex. I would look at a B complex that is already broken down to what you need in case you have some type of weird polymorphism, especially for things like B9 for like folate, and for B12, and also for B6. So what you'd want to look for is for B6, pyridoxy 5-phosphate. So look for P5P. For the B9, you want to look for methyl tetrahydrofolate, not folic acid. For the B12, look for the methylated version or a mix where it's like methylated and hydroxylated or adenosine. But that's when you look at a good quality one, you're going to see at minimum methyl 12, methyl folate, and P5P is the B6.
If you're listening to this like, what the fuck, then don't worry if you're one of my girls because you're taking the right thing. If not, then just write those names down and go back and listen to that part again. Yeah. Another thing to keep in mind is if you are on SSRIs for anxiety or whatever, it's pretty much the same thing. I actually had a girl who always forgot her vitamins, and every now and then she'd be like, I have no energy, I'm feeling like shit, my sleeping's bad, my cravings are bad. I'm like, have you stopped taking your Moldy? And she's like, holy shit, I keep forgetting. Yeah. That's why you need to take your vitamins. Well,
this is actually a good segue in what you're talking about, like what we just said about things can be potentially damaging. So like on an SSRI, anything that artificially creates more serotonin can be a bad thing. So people who are on SSRI are going to have depleted levels of certain vitamins that you need to make these serotonin receptors work properly. But let's say your client's like, oh, I'm not sleeping well. My buddy told me to take tryptophan or 5-hydroxytryptophan. If you're on an SSRI, that's a big no-no because it can cause serotonin shock. So what ends up happening is that an SSRI will artificially raise serotonin levels in your brain because of a myriad of reasons why you don't have enough serotonin. You might just have a deficiency in making them. Maybe you have a nutrient deficiency that's preventing that. Maybe you have a genetic issue that's doing that. But if you're on SSRI, you're going to inhibit the breakdown, the reuptake of serotonin. So it's going to sit in the sonic cleft and make you feel happy and make you feel joy and not depressed. If you take something that's going to convert into serotonin, like 5-hydroxytryptophan for sleep, that can create an influx and an excessive amount of serotonin in your brain, which can damage neurons. It can give you, you'll feel pretty awful. So it can make you pretty, it can actually make it the opposite way and make you super irritated, insomnia, even more depressed. There's a lot of things that can, so if you're going to take anything, make sure you definitely, at least talk to the doctor or cross-reference what you want to take with the medication that you're looking at on like drugs.com, or there's a lot of other places you can look at online, just to make sure you don't actually take something that's going to be contraindicative with the medication you're on.
To summarize the supplements chat, let's quickly touch on how melatonin can actually be really beneficial. And there's actually nothing to fear for it, because I had a girl that was really scared of melatonin for the fact that, oh, doesn't this mean that it's going to completely suppress mine? It's like, well, it regulates it.
Oh, and especially with people looking back at like the SSRI issue, like a lot of people with SSRI, with depression, are going to have sleep issues. They feel tired all the time, but they don't actually sleep well because melatonin is made from serotonin. So if you already have a deficiency of serotonin, it's going to be very difficult possibly to get enough melatonin in your brain. So melatonin can actually be really beneficial. Like I use Nutridyne melatonin because it's easy for me to get. But like, that's the thing with the problem with Australia is unless you're over the age of 55, you can't buy it over the counter. So apparently only old people have sleep issues. It's like, so I've got another 10 years before I can buy melatonin over the counter unless they change the laws. And it's expensive. You buy it from the pharmacy, you're paying like $60 for 31 milligram pills or something like that. When in America, you could walk into a vitamin shop and buy for $5 a bottle of melatonin. But anytime melatonin is considered a hormone, so anytime you see hormone, then government, especially in Australia, is going to get massively involved because hormones are bad. Okay, we can't have that. We can't have it like with the TRT stuff. We can't have a lot of nice body dudes with big boners running around. Oh shit, it's crazy to me. But with the melatonin, as far as I know, and I've never been able to find it, and I've talked to Dr. James LaValle and some other people about this, there's no negative feedback loop to melatonin. So sometimes when you take nutrients or take certain substances, the body will recognize that you already got enough of it, or maybe you've got an excessive amount of it. It will then selectively lower your own natural production. As far as I know, melatonin doesn't have that issue. So you can take melatonin, as far as I know, and not have to worry about if you get off not making melatonin anymore. Because as well, melatonin isn't just for sleep. Melatonin helps with gut peristalsis, so it helps you poo better. It is a massive kidney detoxifier, antioxidant. There's a lot of other things that melatonin does that's beneficial, not just for sleep, but it does help get not just reestablish sleeping patterns, but it also improves the quality of your sleep and the time that you're having more restful sleep. That's why a lot of times when people take it, they'll say that they dream a lot. Because that is some of the more restful and restorative part of your sleep is when you're dreaming. So if you don't dream, you're probably not getting into like really deep sleep where your brain's cleaning all the plaque out and all the other beneficial things you need for that. So
and it's not something to fear just because you're getting crazy dreams. That's another one.
Yeah, like, and the thing is, like, if you don't need a ton of melatonin for it to work, but again, just like with anything, everybody has their own range of good and bad, or I want to say good bad, but where it works or it's too much, right? So like original studies on it was only 300 micrograms of melatonin. So for some people, 300 micrograms might be plenty. Now for me, I find more around 3 to 6 milligrams is what I take. Now, and that can change. If you take melatonin and you wake up really groggy, you want to make sure you take melatonin early. If you're only going to sleep 4 or 5 hours, don't take it before bed. Don't do the label. What I like people to do is take it when the sun goes down. So when the sun goes down, it gets dark outside, go ahead and take it, because that's when you would be normally making melatonin, your first kind of influx of melatonin anyways. But if you take it and you don't get enough sleep, you will wake up groggy. Or if you're taking too much, there's a chance you will wake up groggy. So you might want to cut your amount down until you play with that amount until you find an amount that makes you sleep really well, but doesn't make you wake up and not know where the hell you are.
Yeah, that like, and it's a really controversial thing out there, which is why you need to be careful who you listen to. It's not something to fear, but. Nah. To summarize just how important it is for food quality, let's highlight the importance of fiber and where the carnivore dumbasses, the carnivore and keto crowd get it all wrong.
Well, okay, so yeah, I mean, oh man, you gotta stay a little more neutral. Look, and the thing is, like, if you look at extreme diets like that, like carnivore, to me, everything's a tool. So if you have somebody with like an IBS or IBD and they feel better on that, knock yourself out. But just like any other extreme diet, you're gonna have to accept that there's nutrient deficiencies. So like if you're on a vegan diet, if you want a vegan diet to do really well, you're gonna have to expect to take some supplements because there's just certain things you can't get out of plants that you get out of animals. Like you can't get any vitamin A. Vitamin A in plants is beta carotene. So your body has to convert that. If you've got a polymorphism that slows down your ability to convert beta carotene to vitamin A, you could have a vitamin A deficiency because you can't make enough of it. Even iron, like absorbable iron, hemi-iron, you don't find it in plants. You only find it in animals. So you might have to take an iron supplement. On the carnivore side, one of the big things I've seen lately, and I just actually got somebody's blood work, it's one of Max's clients. This guy looks incredible, 6-pack. I've known him for a long time. You're a really good dude. His labs look absolutely atrocious. Like his triglycerides are in the thousands. So, yeah. Well, HDL's like in the 20s. His total cholesterol is over 350. So there's something wrong. So it's either going to be his diet or he's got some like really pathological thing that he needs to talk to a doctor about. So he's going to the doctor today to talk to him. I was like, what's he doing, Max? Because he likes to eat a carnivore diet. I said, does he eat carnivore plus veg and fruit? He goes, nah, I think he just eats meat. I'm like, okay, fuck. Like this is a example of somebody who could actually have a genetic predisposition for issues with blood fats, and he's eating a diet that's actually might be a good diet for one person, probably horrible for him. So like the first thing we're going to suggest is maybe looking at the types of meat he's eating and make some switches out, like maybe switch out some red meat for some fish or chicken. I haven't seen all of what he's eating yet, so I don't know. But then also saying, look, you need to eat some fucking plants. You need some plants. Like vegans, they say you need to eat all these plants. Vegans are right. These guys, carnivores, says you need to eat some meat. They're right. If you get both of them to have a baby together, you have a perfect diet. You eat plenty of animal protein, eat shit tons of veggies, and a little bit of fruit, and you're good. But there's a lot of things that fiber does that you don't really get from other things. Like one thing is it scrubs out your insides. It creates bulk. It helps you poo. It scrubs that stuff out. Other things it does specific to the gut is that the cells that line your intestines, they really like to eat fatty acids, but they eat specific fatty acids that are produced by gut bacteria, and those gut bacteria produce those by eating the fiber that we can't absorb, like plant cellulose and other fibers. They eat that, and then they in a way poop out like short chain fatty acids like butyric acid, and that butyric acid is what feeds the enterocytes, or the cells on the inside lining of your stomach. And then those enterocytes now can produce their hormones and their chemicals, and they can, move, like contract and move the intestines around. Like it allows that's their energy source, just like ours are carbs, proteins, fats. Their energy source is short chain fatty acids, valeric acid. I think it's valeric acid, butyrate, and I can't remember the other one, but but the biggest one I think is butyric acid, which is the same thing you would get out of butter. And so a lot of carnivores go, well, I'll just eat butter. And I'm like, cool. But now you're eating an excessive amount of fat. And you're not keeping the fat balance between what you need to be doing. And so in some people, if they have a genetic issue,
And especially saturated fat.
Dependent. Well, no, because here's the thing. Here's the kicker. Like butter it is almost 50-50 monounsaturated to I think it's like 55% monounsaturated, and then like about half and half. The rest of it is saturated fat. So it actually doesn't have. I guess it matters. Again, you look at it food quality too. It depends. Like you're going to see different things with something like a clarified butter and ghee versus the normal what we would do. And there are going to be some small differences in like grass-fed and conventional. Do we need to worry about that? Who fucking knows anymore? You get too many people arguing about it, and I haven't really looked into it enough. All I know is Kerrygold butter. That's the butter you want, the Irish butter. Oof. But you know, you do have people with, everyone's got different genetics. Everybody's got different instructions. Some people won the lottery with it, some people didn't. And so you get some people might have a genetic predisposition for cardiovascular issues and creating too much blood fat, not being able to process blood fat. So that carnivore diet, if it's done with a lot of heavy red meat, if it's done, especially if somebody has any type of autoimmune issues, in a lot of cases that can create a clusterfuck for some people. So as I will be able to tell you after I talked to this guy and talked about his blood work and what his doctor said. But when you look at, I think in his situation as well, you got a few different things going on. Part of the other piece of it is that fiber does regulate things like bile and cholesterol. So in a case like this, where somebody has really high total cholesterol and really low HDL cholesterol and really high trigs, the first thing I would start to investigate is, I'd look at that fiber. You need to eat more plants. You need to take a multivitamin. We might need to give you something like, the doctor recommended a statin to him, and he knew me from my Poliquin days. He was a student of mine from there. He thought I was going to go, absolutely not. I went, I think it's a great idea. Like if your cholesterol was barely up, I'd say that's dumb. We could take a natural statin like red yeast rice. We could take bergamot extract. There's a lot of stuff that you could do, but you have dangerously high levels of blood fats. I'm just going to recommend that you listen to the doctor, and but also, and here we're going to circle back to what I talked about. I like to work with doctors. I like to talk to my clients and tell them what to say to doctors, what the questions they ask. And so he's going to ask the doctor about possibly taking a gram of bergamot extract a day, because that, in a lot of the studies, 500 milligrams of bergamot extract a day, people were able to cut their statin dose in half. So you cut the statin dose in half, you cut the side effects in half.
I had a client come to me, and I spoke to her on episode 183, but her cholesterol's through the roof. Her bloods were the worst I've seen. And I heard that she tried everything to sort her gut health. She went to a naturopath. She went to 3 doctors. One of the doctors put her on the Galveston diet. She comes to me. I sort out her stress. I sort out her diet, put her on a multivitamin, a magnesium, a vitamin D, and I increase her plants to pretty much most of her diet with some carnivore on top of that. And like her bloods are they're perfect. She's never seen them so good.
Yeah.
And this is where it comes down to, you need to be careful who you listen to, and the quality of your diet matters, because your body ain't gonna do shit if it ain't healthy.
Yeah, 100%. And that's the thing. Like, when you look at bile acids and conjugation of cholesterol, if you're not eating enough fiber, you have not enough bulk to kind of transport that out, so you can have some recirculation of that stuff. And then you're only, I like what I think is Brian Walsh, who said this to me once. He's like, you are what you eat, digest, absorb, and don't excrete. So if you're not pooping, and if you're not making the right things to detoxify and get this stuff out in the gut, like bile acids, then you're going to be made out of what you're breaking down and what you're trying to push out that you're not pushing out. So, but what we always want to do is we want to look for what's the simplest thing that could fix this. So it's like, okay, what do we know about this person? It's just like what I've taught you about designing a long-term training plan. You have to look at, okay, what is the desired outcome? Where are we going? Like, what's the vision? Where are they starting? Now we have to work from the end goal back to the start and fill it in with training and nutrition lifestyle that makes sense. Same thing with this. I've got to look at where we want to go. We want to get his labs looking really good. Okay, what do we know about him now? They look absolutely fucking awful. He's eating a carnivore diet. He's not eating any plant matter. He's probably not taking a multivitamins. It's okay. What's the easiest solution? If you like that diet, send a diet, but we're going to start doing half of the carnivore and half vegan. So you're going to be basically a carnivegan is the new trademark name I'm going to make for it. And you're going to take a multivitamin. And if when we're monitoring your fiber, if we don't feel like it's high enough, we're going to increase your fiber by giving you a supplemental fiber like psyllium husk or something like that that can act as a binding agent.
Yeah, and this also feeds into, I guess, when you are what you absorb and don't excrete exactly what you said. And this can impact how a calorie deficit on paper isn't actually a calorie deficit at the quote-unquote cellular level. Because if your gut isn't doing what it's supposed to be doing, if you're not excreting, if this is where that whole woo-woo excess estrogens comes in, it's just like, it's not your hormones, it's the fact your diet is absolutely trash.
Yeah.
So
well, I think it's interesting too, like, because what is the one macronutrient that no one ever thinks about when they calculate out their diet?
Alcohol.
No, fiber.
Oh yeah, that's a fiber.
Because you get a lot of nutritious dietitians going around and go, well, fiber doesn't have any calories. You don't absorb that. You do. You actually do. So, but it's about like 2.1, 2.2 calories per gram. Now, when somebody's eating a normal amount of fiber, that's not a big deal. So we always recommend at minimum like 10 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories. Optimally, probably 15. It's probably a better place to be. But if you think about this, I've actually had we had one client who was eating somewhere around 80 to 120 grams of fiber a day. She's a naturopath, and she read some research showing the benefits of fiber on the gut microbiome. And I'm like, okay, like that's looking at like 10 grams per 1,000, and instead of going to like 15 or 20 per 1,000, you jump to like 70 grams of fiber per 1,000 calories. Like there's a limit to how much you can handle. And it was crazy because when I first saw her progress, her first initial pics, super lean, but she looked like she had swallowed a beach ball. She looked like one of those, 42 cents a day adopt like an Ethiopian kid. Like it looked like that, like real skinny, but a big, like swollen gut from all the fiber. So if you look at that, if she was eating a normal, let's say 20 grams of fiber, okay, so we've got like what, 40, 45 calories from that you're not thinking about. Not a big deal. If we go up to say 80, now we're talking about 160 calories that we haven't thought about. And again, you get a woman who's 48, 50 kilos, they don't have a lot of wiggle room. So if they're eating a ton of fiber like that and they're processing and making a lot of short chain fatty acids, they could actually be creating a higher level of food intake than they actually realize. We never usually think about that type of stuff.
Yeah, it's really important to look at, like, to zoom out and look at every single element of what you're doing and stop micro focusing on, I guess, missing the forest for the trees. And this kind of can fit into the argument of when people say that they're trying to build muscle, but they're only gaining fat, or I'm training my legs, but my legs gain muscle really fast. I don't want to train them that much. And the argument that we're going to now move